Hello, Live viewers. Welcome to Courts Today. I'm your host, Urvashi Chauhan, bringing you the important legal updates of the day, quick, crisp, and to the point. Watch till the end, and if you find this update valuable, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel because your support keeps us going. Starting with an important update. Union Minister Kiren Rijiju today introduced the Waqf Amendment Bill in the Lok Sabha, highlighting key changes. The Waqf Act 1995, currently in force, is a law that regulates Waqf properties and their administration in India. It aims to ensure proper management, protection, and governance of Waqf assets, which are properties donated for religious or charitable purposes under the Islamic law. The amendment bill proposed some key changes, like the Waqf tribunal orders will now be appealable to the High Court. The Limitation Act of 1963 will apply to the Waqf properties upon the commencement of the Act. The Amendment Bill 2025 is set to be prospective in nature, ensuring that previously registered Waqf properties remain unaffected. Rijiju addressed concerns that removal of Waqf by user provision would lead to confiscation of religious properties like masjids and dargahs, stating that only disputed properties would be impacted. The bill does not interfere with religious practices but aims to improve property management. A key amendment is the removal of Section 40, which previously allowed the Waqf Board to declare any land as Waqf property, a provision Rijiju termed as draconian due to its alleged misuse. The bill also proposes to include non-Muslims in Waqf boards, arguing that these boards are statutory bodies dealing with properties rather than religious institutions. The bill also prohibits the creation of Waqf properties in tribal areas under Schedule 4 and 6 of the Constitution. Additionally, while initially proposing a two-member Waqf tribunal, the bill now retains the existing three-member structure and introduces an appeal provision to the High Court against tribunal decisions. Congress MP Gaurav Gogoi today opposed the bill, arguing that it undermines fundamental rights, particularly by removing the Waqf by user provision, which courts have recognized. He pointed out that the bill limits inclusion of women in Waqf boards to only two, unlike the 1995 Act, which allowed more. He claimed that the bill would affect ancient Waqf properties without documentation such as graveyards and accused the government of using the law to create fear among minorities and divide the society. Well, for more information on this, you can visit www.livelaw.in. The Supreme Court today strongly criticized Telangana Chief Minister A. Revanth Reddy for his statement in the Assembly that no by-elections will be held even if BRS MLAs switch to the Congress party. A bench of Justices B.R. Gavai and A.G. Masih was hearing petitions seeking a timely decision by the Telangana Assembly Speaker on disqualification petitions against the defecting MLAs. During the hearing, senior advocate Aramya Sundaram, appearing for the petitioners, informed the court about the CM's statement, which was made in the presence of the Speaker. The statement assured the MLAs that they need not worry about any by-elections even if they switch parties. Justice Gavai reacted sharply to this, stating that such remarks made on the floor of the House mock the 10th schedule of the Constitution, which is meant to prevent political defections. Senior advocate Mukul Rohtagi, representing the Speaker, said that he could not explain the statement as he was not representing the CM. However, Justice Gavai pointed out that Rohtagi had represented the Chief Minister in another case where the court had also disapproved of his remarks. Referring to past incidents, Justice Gavai recalled that in August 2024, the Chief Minister had made controversial comments about the court's decision to grant bail to BRS leader K. Kavita in the cash for votes case. The court also noted that statements made in the Assembly carry more weight than those made at any public rallies. It emphasized that ministerial statements in the House can even be used to interpret laws. Finally, the bench warned that while the court may be slow in issuing contempt notices, it is not powerless. Rohtagi was then asked to caution the Chief Minister against making such remarks again. For your information, let me also tell you here that the 10th schedule of the Indian Constitution, also known as the Anti-Defection Law, was introduced to prevent elected representatives from switching parties for personal or political gain. It states that MLAs and MPs can be disqualified if they defect to another party unless a merger happens with at least two-thirds of the original party's members. In the next update, the Supreme Court has transferred a PIL concerning frequent collapse of bridges in Bihar to the Patna High Court. The petition sought formation of a high-level expert committee to assess weak bridges and recommend necessary action. A bench comprising Chief Justice of India Sanjeev Khanna and Justice Sanjay Kumar was hearing the plea, which also demanded a structural audit of bridges in the state of Bihar. The petitioner here highlighted that multiple bridges, including under construction ones, had collapsed. Yet, no third-party inspections had been conducted. The Bihar government in response stated that over 10,000 bridges had been inspected and that departmental proceedings were ongoing against the officials involved. However, Justice Sanjay Kumar pointed out that 3 under-construction bridges had collapsed and the concerned officials were merely suspended for a short time before being reinstated back, which meant that everyone was hand in glove. Considering the state's counter-affidavit, the Supreme Court decided that Patna High Court should monitor the issue. The CJI stated that the High Court would conduct regular monthly hearings to oversee the matter. Accordingly, the registry has been directed to transfer the case files within 4 weeks, and the parties are to appear before the Patna High Court in May this year. The PIL, originally filed in July last year, raises serious concerns over infrastructure safety in Bihar, which is India's most flood-prone state. As mentioned in the petition, reports indicated that at least 9 bridges had collapsed, including those in Araria, Siwan, Madhubani, and Kishanganj districts. The petitioner stressed that urgent need for real-time monitoring of the bridges, citing a policy issued by the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways for preserving national highways was important. Moving ahead, the Delhi High Court has ordered removal of allegedly defamatory content from the Wikipedia page of news agency ANI Media Private Limited. Justice Subramaniam Prasad directed Wikimedia Foundation, which hosts Wikipedia, to take down defamatory statements published on ANI's page titled Asian News International. The order came in response to ANI's interim injunction plea, which is part of its 2 crore defamation suit against Wikimedia Foundation. ANI had sought removal of defamatory content and a restriction on Wikipedia's users from publishing such material against the news agency. The court has granted 2 important prayers from ANI's pleas, that is, removal of defamatory content from Wikipedia and restraining users from publishing defamatory material, and lifting the protection status on ANI's Wikipedia page, allowing modifications. Let me tell you, Wikipedia's page says ANI has been criticized for having served as a propaganda tool for the incumbent central government, distributing materials from a vast network of fake news websites and misreporting events. ANI had alleged that Wikipedia had falsely accused it of being a propaganda tool for the government, which it claimed was done with malicious intent to damage its reputation. Well, with this decision of the court, the Wikimedia Foundation will now have to take down this content. And now let me tell you that the oath-taking ceremony of the elected representatives of Rohini Court Bar Association of Delhi has been stayed till further orders. Election to all the bar associations in the national capital, including the Delhi High Court Bar Association, was held on 21st March. The stay on the oath-taking ceremony has been granted by the Election Tribunal Rohini Court Bar Association in the election petition filed by various lawyers alleging discrepancies in the poll process. The petitioners here had also filed a writ petition before the Delhi High Court on the issue. In an order passed on 27th March, Justice Mini Pushkarna had disposed of the plea with the direction to the petitioners to approach the election tribunal. Justice Pushkarna had further asked the election tribunal to take up the matter for consideration and disposal expeditiously. The Punjab and Haryana High Court has quashed a defamation case against the former editor-in-chief of the Tribune and other journalists over a news report regarding a statement made by Punjab Chief Minister Bhagwant Mann in 2019. The case was filed by Nazar Singh Manshahia, an AAP MLA at the time, who alleged that the report falsely accused him of accepting money and a position from the Congress leaders. Justice Tribhuvan Dhaya observed that there was no evidence to suggest that the journalist had any intention to defame Manshahia. The court pointed out that Chief Judicial Magistrate's order from 2020 summoning the journalist was based on assumptions without any supporting material. It emphasized that for defamation under Section 499 IPC to be established, there must be intent to harm a person's reputation, which was not evident in this case. The judgment also referenced a similar case involving the Hindu, where the Supreme Court had set aside defamation charges against the journalist on the ground that there was no deliberate attempt to malign the complainant. The court ruled that reporting a public statement made by Bhagwant Mann did not amount to defamation, as there was no indication that the journalist acted with malice. And lastly, an update on the Valayar rape death case. The Kerala High Court has granted interim protection to the parents of the Valayar victims, shielding them from any coercive action, including arrest. The parents had approached the court to quash the CBI charge sheet in which they were named as accused for allegedly abetting the rape of their daughters. They have also challenged the CBI's conclusion that the children died by suicide. For those of you who do not know, the Valayar case dating back to 2017 involves the death of two minor sisters from a scheduled caste community who were found hanging in their home under suspicious circumstances. Post-mortem reports confirmed that they were raped before their deaths, with indications that the younger girl may have been subjected to homicidal hanging. A special POCSO court had acquitted all accused in 2019 due to a lack of scientific evidence and prosecution failures. Following an appeal by the state government, the Kerala High Court ordered a retrial and transferred the case to the CBI. In January this year, the CBI filed a fresh charge sheet in the CBI court Ernakulam. The charge sheet alleges that the parents abetted the main accused in committing aggravative penetrative sexual assault on the victims. It further claims that they burned one of the child's dresses and school bag 3 days after her death and allowed one of the accused to stay in their house, causing mental and physical agony to the child. The charge sheet also states that the parents failed to protect their children, thereby facilitating the crime. However, the parents have contested these findings, leading to the current proceedings in the High Court. Today, Justice C. Jayachandran, hearing the matter, opined that the case required a detailed examination and scheduled it for a hearing after the summer vacation. Meanwhile, the High Court granted interim protection and exempted the parents from personally appearing before the CBI court in Ernakulam, which had summoned them on 25th April.